My name is Richard Ibghy. Right now I'm based in Montreal. My background is in philosophy. That's what I did my first degree in. Afterwards, I did a master's in administration, where I studied a lot of economics and worked in economics for a while. And then I started doing art a little bit later, around almost 10 years ago now. Yeah.
My name is Marilou Lemmens. I'm from the Eastern Townships in Quebec, and my first degree was in photography. I studied at Concordia University, and then I came to Vancouver to study at UBC, and that's where I did my master's in fine arts. So the title, The Lights, Constellating One's Internal Sky, comes from an image that's in a text by a French sociologist. His name is Gabriel Tarde, and he's a late 19th century sociologist. And in his text, he develops a general conception of economy as relating not necessarily to labor or to maximization of profit or to production, but he's looking at economy as more fundamentally about the desires and the beliefs of individuals. So he's looking at something which is heterogeneous, which is not one thing for everybody. There's a multiplicity of desires, wants, beliefs that exist, and all will influence economic behavior. And so in this image, the lights that are constellating an internal, let's say, sky, these are all these very subjective and unique desires and beliefs that exist for one person. Not that the individual is not connected to other individuals in society. They are, actually that's another big aspect of what we're looking at, but that they are singular and they are quite unique.
I think one of the aspects of his approach that inspired us was that he was more concerned with what are these desires that we have and where do they come from and how are they spread? How do they manifest themselves throughout a society? How is it that at a certain moment in time many people desire the same thing, whereas maybe a year before nobody desired it? And so for him, economy wasn't so much circulation of goods or circulation of money, for example. It was more the circulation of wants, the circulation of values, the circulation of customs. He was very concerned with how these social qualities basically contaminated themselves from one person to the next. And so economy in that sense is more of a social phenomena, which is connected to industry in the sense that when a large number of people desire the same things, it's a lot easier for then industrials to construct a factory to meet those needs. Without that kind of contagion, without that kind of imitation of desire, then it wouldn't be possible to mass produce anything. And so it was kind of looking at what lay behind demand that economists look at, and not just take it as a given, but to actually understand that the social processes that are involved in constituting that demand. I think that even though each piece has its own, I guess, orientation and its own concerns, together in a, I guess, loose way, they all are concerned with political economy and I guess our interests and what we hope to do with these pieces is to somehow question or disarm the naturalized market economy and to try to imagine what economy could mean other than, let's say, market economy or economy as it's normally understood either in the news or how it's taught in schools or how people just normally approach it from a very limited perspective in terms of dollars or units and things like that, and try to imagine it more as a part of our social existence, not necessarily distinct or delineated from other forms of social existence. It's not like we have an economic form of existence, behavior, and then we have all the rest, and try to see it all as one big part of just being human in our society. I think that we see our work as political, but on another level than looking at materials or things like that.
Well, maybe I would say that actually our work is more concerned with language as a prime material. Language is definitely what we've been working with since we started collaborating, and that is our fundamental material. And in this sense, what we read and what we're interested in are systems of ideas. They're also linguistic articulation of specific ideas, or linguistic practices that are linked to like either the workplace or the food industry or different aspects of our social life. So definitely if you look around in the exhibition, what comes through is really an attention to language more than physical materials. And language, but also models, models for conceptualizing a certain reality, systems, and often these systems come from the economic sciences. There's actually a few pieces in this exhibition, but we take them basically away from the field in which they normally function, and then we bring them into the field of art, and we're trying to see what happens when you start playing with these systems of representation or linguistic representations and just twist their meaning a little bit, or twist the way they function. Twist what they measure. Like, for example, the wall mural, the many ways to get what you want, is using a form that's very common to the economic sciences, but also that has permeated culture. Our culture, it's so not omnipotent, but omnipresent, widespread. But here we're taking it, and rather than using facts or data to fill this graph, we're using very subjective ideas about individual behavior or psychological tendencies.
I think that to a certain extent, we use humor in our work as a form of, first of all, subversion, in terms of as a way of disarming the authoritative aesthetic of the works. I think also fundamentally it's a reflection of ourselves. We both enjoy humor, and yeah, it just comes very naturally. I think that humor is a very sophisticated form of, it can be a sophisticated form of social critique. One that does not necessarily have to say something very crudely. Through humor you could allude almost metaphorically, or in much the same way as you could use metaphor to sort of allude to an idea, you could use humor to bring a twist, and then people could understand, like, within a fraction of a second, a whole wealth of ideas. We like to finish with something very graceful and very eloquent. It'll be about 3 minutes long.